House Homeland Security Committee member Carlos Gimenez. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being here. What are you hearing, first of all, about the latest possibility of a Russian invasion?
Well, what we heard when we were back in Congress a couple of weeks ago was that the Russians are really waiting for the ground to freeze. There's only a couple of times a year where Russian tanks can really operate in that sector, in that area. Now in the winter, and then also in the dead of summer when it's really dry. And so what we're expecting is that the Russians are going to wait for the ground to freeze so their tanks can operate, and then that'll be the time when the Russians, will invade, if in fact they're going to be invading.
And what kind of invasion are we looking at? Of course, in 2014, they took Crimea and ports, et cetera. But this time, might they go all the way to the capital?
They may. They've been threatening. They really want to, I believe, instill some kind of a puppet government in the Ukraine, somebody that will turn away from the West and NATO and turn towards to Russia. And so, yeah, they may just do that. It really all depends on how much the Russians really fear NATO, how much the Russians really fear President Biden, and from what President Biden has done so far in his first year. I'm not sure there's much to fear from President Biden. He told us that he wasn't going to leave any Americans and any allies in Afghanistan. That withdrawal from Afghanistan, I think, is directly related to what's happening right now in the Ukraine.
Yeah, a lot of people think it also affects our relations with China and other threats that we have, Iran and so forth. I have to be honest, a lot of Americans, it's more anecdotal than it is verified by polls, but a lot of Americans seem more concerned about our own border than they do the border in Russia and Ukraine, particularly because the flow is if anything, increasing, and the degree to which a lot of these illegal immigrants are being transported around the country are particularly disturbing, particularly these nighttime excursions that have been caught on videotape. What are your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, I think they're absolutely 100% correct. I think we've had close to 2 million encounters. That's just the people that we know we're trying to cross the border. Most of them have been allowed to get into the United States. They completely undid what President Trump, the accomplishments of President Trump, where he basically had that border under control. Not only is it about people, but it's also about the guns and the drugs that are flowing through the southern border. There's more fentanyl been captured this year, enough to kill all Americans 7 times over. I know that we've had about 100,000 Americans die of drug overdoses this last year. Just think about that. That we're allowing this southern border to be wide open to illegal immigration, but also wide open to illegal gun trade, wide open to illegal drug trade that's killing thousands and thousands of Americans. And what does Biden do about it? Nothing. He's doing actually he's helping them. So it's absolutely mind-boggling what this president is doing. And then, of course, you do have the situation in Ukraine. They're both serious, but I tend to agree with the American people that the situation at the southern border is definitely in a crisis, and a crisis of our own making.
Now, there's a question about why the crisis at the southern border exists, why they're not doing more to tighten up the border. A lot of people say it's because they want to bring in more Latin American immigrants. You're a Latin American immigrant. The president's approval rating among Latin Americans has gone way down. In fact, it's not only affected his approval, it's affected the entire Democratic Party. So if that's his intention, it is not helping. It's not working. So why are they continuing with this sort of non-policy at the border?
Look, I really don't know. The one thing that I was thinking about the other day is what happened in New York City, where now residents get to vote, not just citizens get to vote. And maybe they want to expand that to states and national elections. I don't know. I think that may be a key to it all. But look, Latins, Hispanics, we are here, the ones that are totally against what's going on, we got here legally, okay? We didn't use illegal immigration to get into the United States. At least the bulk of us didn't. And so we understand what's going on. And also, the illegal immigration is threatening our safety. I mean, we've seen stories about how illegal immigrants, are running, around the country, and some of them are creating some pretty heinous crimes, and also they're also competing for the jobs that we want in many cases. And so, it's not surprising to me that that Hispanics are, flooding to the GOP. Finally, they get to see that really we stand for their principles. Hispanics we are hardworking. We want the rule of law. That's why we came here.
Right.
We are also people of faith, and those are the principles that the GOP is based on.
You also escaped. You yourself escaped communist Cuba, and Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, the same thing, escaping left-wing economic policies that drove their country into the ground. I'm just wondering how many you settled in what's known as Little Havana in the Miami area. How many of the folks, how many of your constituents worry that what they escaped from is the kind of economic policies that some want this country to move toward?
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Look, in my particular district, we had a 21-point swing to the right from 2016 to 2020. And I think a lot of it, most of it had to do with economic policies and also the fear that this country is moving towards the model that you see in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and unfortunately in Cuba. And we have rejected that. We left those countries for a reason. We left those countries to come here for freedom. And we're seeing some of those freedoms, being put in jeopardy. When you have censorship, when you have people in Congress openly saying that they're socialists, that they admire those regimes in Nicaragua and Venezuela and Cuba, we got a problem. We got a problem here in the United States. And maybe the reason we're here is to save the United States from what happened to us in our country.
That
and that's
would be
certainly
great.
One of my goals in Congress.
Yeah, I don't think anybody fears the socialist turn that this country has taken more than people who have escaped socialism and seen with their own eyes and very often their own blood the results of those changes. Carlos Gimenez, great to see you. Thank you for being here, Congressman. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.